Hello, Fearless Gamers! Matt here for Fearless Games, and we are continuing on with painting our Vampire Count Lord. Last episode, we painted up the bat a little bit, finished up painting the armor black, and then we used well, I don't know how new it is, but we used this paint called Metal Medium, and I combined that with a green color to give my Vampire Count here this green armor look. And as I was finished painting him, I realized I forgot to paint one part of his armor that needs to be painted this color. So before we start, we're gonna prep that part of the model, which is right here, and then we're gonna move on to moving on to the next stage. So we're gonna be using the following paints that you see on your screen, and I'm gonna dive right into getting this guy done so we can move on, and also so my paint doesn't drop, my pre-mixed green armor mix doesn't dry up, and I have to take the chance that I will be able to replicate it again. And so we're gonna paint this up real quick here using my crummiest of brushes, mainly because I don't care what happens to this brush. So it's good for just quick projects. Okay. So with that, the really quick armor is prepped for the next batch, for the next stage, which is going to be applying that greenish color we made in our last episode to this armor bit. Thankfully, I still have enough left, so at the very least it'll match the green part that's on the upper arm that we made. So just gonna give that a quick moment to dry, and then we are going to put on our green metal mix. It's getting a little thick, so let's water it down a bit. Not too much, because you don't except for Vellejo's like special metal paints, a lot of metallic colors tend to separate and just look nasty when you apply water to it. But as I say that, I'm now remembering that the metal medium that I'm using here is Vellejo, so I shouldn't have a problem with it. Now, going off of one thing, just to answer one question here is maybe why am I making it all one color? Well, when I see a bunch of when I see a lot of medieval style armor and such, I find that the more the non-dress suits of armor or decorative suits of armor, sorry, my hand's in the way, tend to be very plain, because they're just made to be effective, not decorative. So that's why I'm making it less decorative, because I think that that's how this would be done. It wouldn't be made to look pretty and fancy. It would be made to keeps enemy blades from slicing the guy. So now that that is set up and I take off half the finish of this sword, I've been doing that a lot. Mainly because I really should be... I poorly handle my paints colors here. Well, I poorly handle the models for some reason. And metal models and base primer paint and such, or just paint in general, and me don't get along too well. And before anyone makes a comment about sealing them, surprisingly, I have sealed models in the past, and I don't know if I'm just not doing it right or something, but sealed models peel even worse for me than anything. I don't know what it is I'm doing, but no, it seems like the more I try to preserve the model, the more of the model gets ruined. So, now with that out of the way, we are going to go and paint the chainmail on this model using just a plain silver metallic color. Nothing too fancy here because it's just the chainmail. What I mean by that is, it's not supposed to be all fancy and decorative and gold and all that. It's just supposed to be chainmail. Just tiny links of metal designed to keep swords and such from hitting bare skin if they happen to go through the plate. And also give more movement freedom since the chainmails, surprisingly, they give a lot of, at least from, I don't know, cause from what I've seen with chainmail and such, you get a lot of mobility out of, or freedom of movement with chainmail. I've noticed. Okay. And then we're going to go to this. Now I see a little bit of chainmail sticking out around his leg right there, so going to get detail brush as close to that as possible. Okay, so right here, and paint up these chains. Alrighty. Okay, so now, looking at it, it looks like I don't see any more pieces that are going to involve chainmail and such, and I want to try and get him ready to a point where I won't have to handle as much of the model as much, so I'm going to stop progression right now in terms of doing any different parts of the model or anything, and I'm going to go right into the shading of the main body and the one leg. That way I can attach those two pieces, put them on a stand, and then I'll be able to work a little bit easier with them. Okay, so we're back, and I'm going to be using one of the old GW washes, mainly because I just want to get rid of these. And going to be putting this on all of his chainmail, everything basically on his leg bits. That way I can get rid of this this jar, and I don't, because this is the part that requires the most I gotta make sure that everything is this is where the most highlighting is going to be involved. It's one part that I need to make sure is washed, so I'm only going to do the parts that are going to be involved with needing to do some highlighting and nothing else for right now. We will go back to these, we will go back to the other areas later, but this is what I want to get taken care of first. And I am putting this on a little thicker than normal, mainly because the older washes were a little bit thinner and didn't cover as well as the shades do, as the new shades do. Okay, so we'll put him aside to dry. And then we'll work on this guy here. Okay, so now that that's taken care of, gonna wait for this to dry. That way I can move on to the next phase, which is going to be gluing it. So we're going to take a quick moment here for this to dry. Alrighty, so now that we've given this enough time to dry, we are now going to attach this leg, once again dealing with the exploding Zap-A-Gap bottle. I really should be more careful with that. We're going to attach this leg to the body of the Vampire Lord here. That way we can move on to getting him all nice and set up, and then we can put him on his base, and then I don't have to worry about handling him too much and peeling his paint off. So we're then just going to attach this like that. Okay. And now he's attached. So we're just going to give that a moment to dry as I find a proper... There we go. Now we're just going to give that a moment to dry. That way we can glue it now, then onto his square base, and then we can move on. Okay, now that he's dried, we're going to glue him to his stand, and seeing how a lot of the gamers, a lot of pictures posted, it seems to be like he's kind of situated with his one foot in the corner, like that. So that's how I'm going to glue him onto the stand, and I apologize that he's like way out of place on the frame here. So we're gonna add some glue to this foot, add a nice helping of glue to his base here, and then like I said, gonna glue him so that one foot's in the corner and the rest is mainly sitting on the front like so. So while that dries, let us move on to another piece of this project, and we'll get back to him later. So I'm going to just slide him over, and I'm going to work on his hand here. So we did the armor piece here. Now I'm going to go back and paint up his hand here. So I'm going to take my original hand paint color and put that on this model. Okay. Okie dokie. Oh, sorry. Much better. Okay, we're just gonna try and get this as best as we can covered without ruining the armor that we just spent all that time mixing the green for so it matches the rest of his body. Okay. And okay, so boom and boom. Okay. And so now we're gonna go and this is gonna be the tricky part. Getting into those spots through the handguard where you can see his hand. Okay. Boom. Okie dokie. So now, with that done, we're then going to give that hand our flesh tone wash. That way it can be nice and shaded, and then we can move on to the next step. And we're gonna get our Fleshshade here and plop that down. Okay, and then one last bit here. There. Okay. So there we go. Now, place that there. And I'm gonna have to wipe off this blade and clean it up a bit. But for the most part, that hand is now ready. And checking it out on him, we might be pretty much practically done with that hand, because I don't think a whole lot of it is visible when you put it on him. Oh no. No, I can make it actually either this, or I can bring it in real close like that. Actually, I might do this as a cheat. It'll make it where I don't actually have to paint any more of his hand. So we don't have to go through the whole step of... Because normally it's supposed to be out like this. It's supposed to be like a haha. But I'm going to make it more of a come at me type of thing. So you couldn't see any of that at all. So no point. I apologize. So let us move on now. What we're going to do is we're going to we are going to give the what are we going to do next? I know, we will finish off his teeth. So his teeth are fairly small, and so we don't need too much of to go off of here, but we want something to help make those teeth stand out. So I'm going to take my my original color that I use for bone, and I'm going to paint up those teeth with it. Okay. Then, once that is done, I'm going to take a little bit of a shade to them to help define them out. There we go. Whoops. He's drunk. Go home, Vampire Lord. You're drunk. And we're going to take a little bit of the same shade we used to paint the bone skeleton piece on him and his flesh. And we're going to go over the teeth with it. Maybe this is a very small detail that you guys, I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see it or not. Okay, and then with that, we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to go over it again with a different, we're going to go over it again with the same bone color. This time going very, very, very light coat here because we want to keep definition of those teeth so you can see them. So all I'm doing is I'm just very gently going over the teeth area. So they're getting painted, but not really covered. Okay. So this effect. Now there's two levels you can go with this. This one here gives you the gives you kind of like the non-brush teeth look, I like to call it. So it looks like he hasn't brushed his teeth at all. And that's how I'm going to keep it, because he's an ugly vampire, so he doesn't brush his teeth. But what I could do, there's two different levels to this. you could do one of two things. You could do a couple of things. You can paint them pure bone color, then give them a white wash, then give them a white dry brush over, which will give you the look of teeth that are basically brushed. You can do what I just did, which kind of gives you just like a nasty teeth looking thing. Or you can do what I do for my friends orcs, which is do this technique here, but then after this level, go over it in white, and then it'll give it look like that they brush their teeth, but they don't floss. Is the effect that you get. So with this look here, because of the way I did this, you can't really see the teeth too well, and that's okay. They're distant enough where you won't see them from afar, but when you pick up the model and observe it, you'll notice them. And that is all the time we have for today, so thank you all for watching, and until next time, Fearless Gamers, take care.